bank president on the phone or can do whatever, and making those relationships. One thing you want to do too is make sure, especially now that everybody in the world has caller ID, is make sure that that person, when they see your number pop up on there, they're really happy to take your call. I mean, so make it, you know how there's some people when you see the number pop up, you go, oh my God. Oh, and I've actually, it's kind of interesting because years ago, I was, this is going back to like 1986, and still very heavily invested in oil and gas, not BP. And I don't know if we've ever spilled any, I don't think we have. This is back in 1986, when I'm 21 years old, and I'm staring down a couple $1 million loan at a bank that's pretty local to where I'm at, not my dad's bank, and the price of oil goes to nothing, and I'm kind of sitting there going, I'm 21 years old, I've got an income stream from my entertainment clients, the oil and gas that used to pay the loans off ain't quite even cutting the interest now. It's like, man, what do I do? So I went in to meet with the president of the bank, and again, another small bank in our area. Really good guy, but he was having to take these meetings with a lot of people. But I was probably the worst because I was, 21, and really didn't have anything besides some music revenue to, they didn't really understand that back there. And I knew I was in for a reaming, like a burning, like a really big one. And so I'm like, oh boy, what do I do? So I got to do something with humor. Because he was always, he and I always had fun, and that kind of stuff. But I knew this wasn't going to be probably a pleasant conversation. So it was kind of a gross joke, but he said, the examiners are just, really working us over here. And man, he said, with all these oil and gas loans, we need to get them out of here. He goes, is there any way you can just move this loan up to your dad's bank? I said, well, Ron, matter of fact, he and I still laugh about this. Well, Ron, I said, I've experienced relative humidity when it comes to that. And he said, what's that? And I said, that's when you ask your dad's bank to loan you the money and they say, piss on you. And he laughed so hard. He said, I was going to rip you a new one today. He said, I was going to work into you. He goes, no, I can't work into you now. And he said, I'll tell you what, why don't we renew this loan for another 6 months and we'll go grab lunch. I said, great. So we renewed it for 6 months. I was able to work it out. It took a couple of years to get the whole thing worked out. But he was, even though I was probably his worst customer at that time, well, probably not his worst, but I mean, I was like, certainly on the radar, very heavily on the radar, on crash course. He was always glad to take my telephone call. So here I was, the guy that, he probably least liked talking about in his boardroom at the time. Now he likes talking about me a lot. But yeah, he still enjoyed taking my phone call and was always there. So make sure that, as Gary said,
you keep that line open.
Yeah, always
good or bad. Keep the line open.
But keep it. What Gary said that was most important is keep it open at the top.
Yeah.
Don't be a consumer. Be a real person. Consumer is a number. Be a Gary Goldstein when you call City National Bank, or be a whoever it may be, a name and a face.
Good job.